Good morning and welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to a little how-to video. Now this video is going to be about heated grips. I'm going to show you how I fit heated grips onto a motorcycle. I'm going to try and keep it really simple because it is a really simple job you can do at home. You can do it yourself. It's not hard. Now I'm going to be fitting the Oxford heated grips onto Louise's bike. I bought these from a company called the Sports Bike Shop. It's an online company, really great. Bought loads of stuff from them before. And I'll tell you, I got those for £44. So that's £44 to keep your hands warm all winter. Amazing price. So I'll put the link in the description below. You go over and have a look. Anyway, we're going to get the bike prepped and I'll show you how I put these on the bike. It's a really straightforward job. Let's get the bike prepped. Now there's two ways that you can get these grips off. You can cut them with a Stanley knife. Just get them off, cut down there. That's it, they're off. But you've got to chuck them in the bin. Now, I don't want to do that because I want to keep these grips for another day. Because if Louise buys another bike, which she probably will in the not too distant future, I can just take these heated grip kit off this, put the original ones back on there, and put the new heated grip kit on the new bike. So I'm going to show you how I get the grips off without cutting them. It's really straightforward. What you need is a can of spray, WD-40 or anything like that. And you want to get this tube that's on the spray up inside the grip itself. It can be quite tricky, especially one like this. It's got a bigger tube, but it can be done. So you want to pull the end of the grip away and slide that tube of the spray up inside the grip and give it a couple of little squirts. Just leave it for a second. We'll do the same on the other side. This is the throttle side, so I'm going to get that in between the plastic throttle body itself and just give it one little squirt. Chuck that up there. And what that's going to allow me to do is spin the grip off of the bars without cutting it. It's just going to be enough of a slip in there. So get a big cloth, grab the grip itself, and just give it a little spin. And there you go. Just like that. I've now got a grip that I can use again in the future without it being cut. And believe me, you wouldn't have got that off without the oil being sprayed up there. They're mega tight, as they should be. So that's one grip that we can save, and we'll do the same with the throttle side. Just give that a little twist. It's on a little plastic throttle body. And there we go. Bit of glue come with it. Another grip that we can use another day. So let's pop those up there and I'll keep those safe. And then just wipe the excess oil off because we don't want any on there when we put the heated grips on. We want to be able to get those stuck really tight, which could involve a bit of glue, but we'll get to that point in a minute. Now the next step is we want to take the seat off the bike to expose the battery, maybe a side cover on this case, and we want to either lift the tank up slightly. We've got to get some wires that run from the bars under the tank down towards the battery. So in this occasion I can actually lift this tank up and get enough access, but if you can do it, you want to get the tank off. So let's get that prepped and I'll show you how I run the wire kit down the bike towards the battery. So let's get the seat off this bike and we'll see what's underneath, find out where the battery is. That's really important. We need to find out the location of the battery so that we can get to its terminals. And in this case on Louise's bike, it's just underneath a side panel down here. So it's just underneath this panel here, if I can get it off. There we go. So that's the battery exposed. You can see on Louise's case, it's on the side. It's quite often in the top here, but it's generally underneath the seat. We need to get access to the positive and the negative terminals of the battery to connect the kit to. So that gives me lots of access. And now I just need to get some access underneath the tank so that we can run the cables up to the bars. And in this case, it's just two 8mm nuts and I'll be able to lift that tank up in the air. Now that gives me enough access to the battery on this side, and like I say, I don't have to take the tank off of Louise's bike because I can just lift the tank up here without taking all the petrol pipes off. And that gives me enough access to get the cables up to the bars where I want them to connect up everything at this end. Right, let's see what we get in the box itself. So we unbox it. And there's the fittings instructions there if you want to have a read through that. Again, it's very straightforward, so I will show you how to do it. And in the actual box itself, we've got, so this is going to be your wire that runs from the grips themselves down to the battery, and you can see there's a positive and negative terminal connection there, and they'll go onto the battery really nice and easy. There's the bracket for the control unit itself, which we're going to mount up on the bars. And then there's a little fitting kit there, which, as I said a minute ago, we've got some glue, which we can glue those grips back onto the bars, and a few cable ties to keep the cables nice and tidy. And then we've got the actual kit itself. We've got the important bit. So there's the controller. That's what we're going to mount onto the bars itself, and that's what's going to control your heat settings. Over there. And then, again, really straightforward, just the grips. So we need to work out which side is which. Obviously, you can have a throttle side and you're going to have the other side. You can tell the difference because one's bigger than the other. You see this top one here, the hole in the middle of the bore is bigger because it has to fit over the throttle body itself. So we know that that's going to be the right hand side. And that's what's in the kit. 2 grips, 1 controller, 1 cable to fit to the battery, bracket for the controller, and a little glue fitting kit. So let's get them on the bike and show you how easy it is. Now the next step is to get the controller unit mounted to the bars. Now before you mount it to the bars, as you can see on the back, there's 4 screws in each corner that are supplied in the kit. That screws the controller unit onto the bracket, again, that's supplied with the kit. And as you can see on the bracket, it's got 2 holes which correspond to the 2 bolt holes on the clutch assembly bracket. So basically what we want to do is get that unit and that bracket bolted to the clutch assembly bracket like that. So it sits there perfectly. So all we need to do is undo these 2 8mm bolts, get them out, put the bracket in place and put the bolts back in. Now I'm not going to fit them, but in the kit you get 2 spacers like that, and basically what they do is they go in between the bracket and the clutch assembly just to space the Oxford heated grips bracket away from the clutch assembly. And if your bolts aren't quite long enough because of the spacers, again, Oxford do supply some bolts in the kit they're slightly longer than the standard to get your bracket back on. So that's nice and straightforward. So I'm going to get this bracket mounted on the bars, then I'll show you the next step, which is connection. So now that you can see I've got the control unit mounted on the bars, that's on the bracket connected to the clutch assembly. Really straightforward. I've also managed to lift the tank, like I said before, and I found a nice route for this cable, which is the cable supplied. You have 2 ends with the round terminals there. They're going to go onto the battery. That then has to make its way up under the tank, up to the handlebars. So I've got the other end here. So I've managed to lift the tank and find a nice safe route. You want to find a route that it's going to not get trapped and it's got plenty of room if it needs to pull or wiggle, which I've managed to do really easily. So that's now these 2 terminals down by the battery, up under the tank. I have it hanging out here. I also have the other end of the control unit up at the handlebar end as well. So they're ready to connect once I get the bar grips on. So we're going to put the bar ends on now, the heated part of the grip, and then we can do all the connections, and that's it. It's as simple as that. So now we're ready to fit the grips themselves. This is the heated part of the grips, and again, it's so straightforward. You can see there's 2 different size holes, and it's even more foolproof than that because one has left and one has right written on them, so we know which side they go. To get these on, to make sure they don't slip, Oxford supply some glue. So we just want to get a little bit of this glue inside the grips themselves, slide them back on, the opposite to how we took the other ones off, and then I'll show you how to do the connections. So now we've got everything on, bar ends and the grips are all glued on nice and tight. We need to get the cables connected and tidied up. Now you're going to have the 2 cables from left and right heated grip. You're going to have the cable for the controller, which has all the connections on. We're going to connect that up in a second. And you also have the cable from the battery, which is down here, which I've tucked up under the tank. Now, the idea with these is we want to get them tidied up out of the way, but not so much that they're going to rub on anything or going to get restricted, especially the throttle side, because this cable has to move all the time with the throttle. What we don't want to do is pull it so tight and then that's just going to get trapped. You want it tidy, but you need some slack on there. So we've got a cable tight to the bar, and leave around that much slack. That way the throttle can move, and there's no chance of that getting restricted, pulled out, or even worse, trapping your throttle open. That's a really bad thing. So I'd say about that much slack was, we'll just pop that on there for a mo. The idea is I want to get this connector block, which everything connects into, just tucked under the tank, cable tied up out of the way. Again, somewhere where it's not going to get knocked or rubbed. So again, the left hand grip, don't have to be so fussy with that because it doesn't move. Again, cable tie a little bit down the bottom of the bars so they can go underneath the tank. No problem. That should be fine. What I see a lot of people do is they run the cables through the headstock there, which, yeah, it's nice and easy to get them through, it holds them out of the way. But what it does, the cables can then chafe on the headstock bolt, and it's not a great idea, so I wouldn't suggest that. Let's get these ties clipped off, out of the way. Don't need those. And that's quite tidy, to be fair. I know there's a lot of cables on the bars now with the extra ones from the heated grips, but that's, for me, not bad at all. I'm happy with that. So we've got to get these connected. So on the controller, the end of the controller, there's the main connector blocks. You've got two the same, which are the left and right heated grip, and this one looks different, is the one that goes down to the battery. You can't really get it wrong. So we're going to connect up the left hand side grip into that one. Go the right way around, Paul, it does help. And then we're going to connect the, sorry, that's gone in there, I can find it now, the right hand grip into that one. Then the battery, so this is the one that I run earlier up under the tank to go down to the battery. We'll connect that in a second. That connects to the last connector, the one that looks slightly different, and that connects up like so. And then we're just going to get this bundle of wires, tuck them under the tank. I'm going to cable tie them, so again, they're not too tight and they're not rubbing on anything. Again, I'm not taking the tank completely off, but I have got it loose so I can get access underneath and cable tie them out of the way. So let's do that, make this tidy, and then we'll get to the battery side of things. Now the last job is to connect the system to the battery. As you can see, I've bought the cables underneath the frame there because I don't want anything to rub when the seat goes on. I don't want any chance of these cables getting chafed and, you know, they're going to arc out and cause a problem. Now, just to make a quick note, that there's two ways that this system can be fitted. You can go direct to the battery, which is I'm doing, so that it's permanently live, or you can have it on the ignition system. That means tapping into a live wire on the ignition system, so as when you turn the ignition off, the grips will go off. I'm going direct to the battery, which is what most people do, but that does mean the lights stay on, the heated grips stay on even if your ignition's off. So you've got to remember to turn them off when you pull into the garage, otherwise your battery will go flat. Done it, you'll only do it once, it's not that much of a problem. So anyway, we're going to just take these battery terminals off, the positive and the negative. You can see the wires that come down under the tank that's supplied. I've got the ring terminals on, so they're just going to go onto the terminals of the battery like so, and they are marked negative and positive, so you can't really go too wrong. So let's get these connected and we'll see if the system works. And that's it. It's as easy as that. That's taken me about half an hour to fit this kit. It's really all about keeping the cables tidy. Fitting the kit's not a problem. It's routing the cables underneath the tank and making sure they're not going to get trapped. Make sure the cable's tied up and not pinching. You've got to make sure that throttle side is not pinching. It's got plenty of room. But half an hour job. Louise has got lovely heated grips now. Now let's have a look at this controller. Let's make sure it all works. So we just want to press the plus button there. Yeah, I mean, that's lovely. There you go. 100%. That's all working fine. So we'll leave it on for a minute just to make sure that they're going to warm up. And she's good to go. It's as easy as that. I'm just going to put the seat back on, the tank bolts back in. Well, I hope this video has helped someone that's thinking about putting heated grips on their bike. It's not that difficult. You do need a few tools, as you've seen in the video, but it's a screwdriver and a couple of bits and bobs. And it's as easy as that. So give it a go. Heated grips are the best, and it'll keep you going all over winter. Cheers.